we had a couple of goals motivated us to install a Lagun mount. We wanted to be able to raise and lower the table slightly to make it easier to eat or to work on our computers, as the case may be. We have a couple of elderly dogs who are having trouble jumping up on the dinettes, and the factory table, there was no way we could give them enough room to do it. So we thought with the Lagun table, we could push it out of the way if they needed space to jump up. And so I was too clever by half initially. I can't blame Deb for this. The final goal we had was to avoid drilling holes or making visible changes to the way the trailer looked, so that if we ever wanted to go back to the way it was or sell the trailer, there wouldn't be gaping holes that detracted. So initially, our original table came on the two pole mounts, and the poles were mounted to the floor with an aluminum, I guess it's aluminum, a base, a metal base in any event, with 8 big screws. So my initial thought was to take advantage of the existing screw holes, they're there anyway, and to make up a kind of an L-shaped mount, and that's this piece right here. And I made it out of strong plywood. I put a gusset in it, epoxied in place, and then I laminated some aluminum flat stock into the back to make it very strong. And in the end, it was very strong. There was no way I could break it, but it failed to take into account kind of a fundamental principle, and that's everything is a spring at the end of the day, and it just depends how flexible or rigid a spring. And it was unbreakable, but it was a spring, and if you leaned on the table, there was enough give, it would sort of go boing, and splash coffee out of your coffee cup. Anyway, it did not fly. So that sent me back to the drawing board. My wife, whose background is in science, is very mechanically inclined, and suggested that it would be much stronger if I connected a piece of plywood from one side to the other, as many people have done who have installed Lagun tables. And it turned out they were right and she was right. So when my initial notion didn't work, I fell back to the solution of putting in a piece of ply between the both settees. In this case, there wasn't any maple ply that I could find, and if I had, it probably would have cost a fortune. So I used good birch ply, good 2 sides, and 3/4 of an inch thick, so good and strong. And then we put a maple stain on it. I also put tape on the edge so you didn't have to look at the rough plywood. It can be bought everywhere, a maple edging tape, and I put it on with an iron, and then we stained that too. My goal, as I said, was to find a way to make the thing strong without doing any lasting damage to the trailer. Now, some people have put in very ingenious bracing behind the Lagun, the plywood part of the cabinetry, and tied into that. But in our case, both because of the original layout of the trailer, and on the other side, because I've installed an inverter, a 1500 watt inverter, there's a lot of wires and things going on that make it impossible, is the bottom line, or unrealistic, to reinforce the furniture from behind. So instead, what I wanted to do was to find a way to make up something that could be screwed into the furniture, but if it was removed, would be invisible. So here's what I came up with. This is made out of 1/2-inch aluminum. I'm a hobby machinist, so I happen to do it on my milling machine in the basement, but it could have been done just about as quickly, to be honest, with a hacksaw, a drill, a portable drill and a file, and it would have been just as effective. So it's a 1/2 inch thick piece of aluminum, and it's shaped like an L. Let's see if we can get a look at it under there. Yep, there you go. And what happens, it's screwed into the wall, I'll call it, the mounting wall on the one side, and then there are two 1.5 inch screws that come up from the bottom and tie into this cleat. The escape furniture is really rigid. It's well made, and it's tied into the body of the trailer itself. It's not going anywhere. So I had no pangs about tying into this cleat, and in fact, it's immovable for all intents and purposes. So the bottom line is, if we decided we wanted to take the table out, or for whatever reason remove it, we could just pop these two screws underneath and nobody would be the wiser. In my case, to kind of recover my pride, you have to do something to keep the bottom from wiggling, from moving. And because I had this beautiful but faulty mount, I went ahead and used it anyway. And that's what I use to prevent the bottom of the wall, I'll call it mounting wall, from moving. It would probably be easy. It would be better, to be honest, not just easier, to put a piece of wood right at the very base of the mounting wall, a piece of trim, and tie into that with a few screws. That would give the same result with a lot less tears. Finally, when we got it all together and I put the bracket back on, there was still some flex in the plywood. Again, it was strong, but it still had very little flex, but more than we wanted to have in our table. So in my case, what you could have done would be to use the original wall out of ply as a pattern and cut another piece of 3/4 inch ply and screw and glue them together so you wind up with a 1.5 inch thick wall, which would be really rigid. I didn't have the extra ply hanging around, and I found a quicker and dirtier way to do it. This piece of wood here is 3/4 inch thick by 1.5 inches deep pine that I picked up at a home improvement store. And I screwed it from the back into the Lagun support wall. Then, in order to make it even stiffer, I got a piece of aluminum U-channel from the same home improvement store and screwed it into the back as well, so that it's a beam section, which at the end of the day is very rigid, and for all intents and purposes, it's eliminated any flex in the mounting. There's a little bit of flex in the Lagun bracket itself. That's not, that's just part of the design. But at the end of the day, it's both strong and inflexible. I hope that that's helpful and that you learned from my experience. The people who've done it before on the forum and on the Facebook page knew what they were doing. And so avoid this kind of amount and use this kind of amount. I hope you find that helpful.